Call of Duty Zombies is a mode that is known for many things. We have awesome maps, cool wonder weapons, and fantastic settings, but what it is mainly known for is its story. We are all familiar, well, somewhat familiar with Treyarch's very complicated storyline with zombies, but what some people disregard is the non-Treyarch games. World War II, Exo Zombies, but today we're going to be talking about Infinite Warfare Zombies. Infinite Warfare Zombies was an interesting topic to research about because I literally had not known any lore prior to actually recording this video. So it was like learning a whole new set of zombies lore that I've never heard of, and I'm sure for you guys, it's probably the same. So let's take a deep dive into this strange lore of Infinite Warfare Zombies. The first cutscene we receive is the intro to Zombies in Spaceland, and as soon as it plays, we understand the tone of the story. It's very Scooby-Doo-esque. That's the best way I can describe it. It's very much like an old cartoon would portray a zombies mode. As we see all the storm and stuff happening in the background, Willard Wyler is the first to introduce himself, and he monologues on while a scene of a classic horror movie would play in the background. He's honestly kind of glazing himself in the speech, but we don't talk about it. After this really weird speech by Willard, we get introduced to our 4 characters that we are going to be playing as for the entire game. Andre, my personal favorite of the 4, he's got drip and he seems like a chill dude, but he does get scared by the lightning later in the cutscene, which I don't know how I feel about. Sally, a girl that seems to have an attitude in the intro, but otherwise she's alright, I guess. AJ, a big dude that can be best described as an average football player jock kind of guy, but he's a pretty chill guy as well. And finally, Poindexter, the nerd of the group that is really good at playing the role of the nerd, even if he's trying to or not. The 4 then get introduced to Willard for the first time and eventually get taken to the inside of the theater, where they will apparently be shown the culmination of Willard's life's work, which he oddly words that they will be a part of. Up until this point, pretty much everything was normal, but when he enters the film room after leaving the 4, there is a pentagram on the ground with their pictures in the middle. He then pulls out a dagger, cuts himself, and spills all the ketchup in the world all over the pictures, which apparently causes the pentagram to glow and the movie that the 4 are watching turn into a portal, I guess? As a result, the 4 get transported inside Zombies in Spaceland, and not only are their clothes different from their bodies, but also their personalities have also slightly altered. Well, maybe not Poindexter, but obviously this is a very confusing situation for the crew, and they start to go around the park searching for things that make sense and a way out, and they eventually find the DJ David Hasselhoff. I told you guys this was strange. Hasselhoff offers help to the crew, and they learn that they must obtain a part of the soul key to leave this place. We'll learn about what the soul key is later, but just know that they need it to escape. Eventually, once we defeat the alien boss fight from the Easter egg, we obtain a part of the soul key, and it teleports them to a different time period with different personalities and clothes once again in the Rave in the Redwoods. As you most likely know, or don't, all of the Infinite Warfare maps follow a very similar path, that being a celebrity that offers guidance in completing the Easter egg and obtaining a piece of the soul key. In Rave, our celebrity is none other than Kevin Smith, which is one of my favorites in the entire celebrity catalog. However, along the way, we learned some very interesting information. We learned that the 4 that we're playing as aren't the first to be put through these films, but they were the first ones to survive. As creepy as it may seem, it just gets even worse when we hear that Willard Wyler's daughter, her fiance, and their baby were put through Rave in the Redwoods by Willard.
When we arrived in the Redwoods film, the shock nearly killed me. I couldn't believe my own father had sold his soul and cast Matthew and I away into the oblivion of this film.
We also learned that Willard's wife had died from cancer previously, and the reason that Willard sent his daughter into Rave was because she was starting a new film company with her husband when Willard started going downhill. We also discovered that all of the celebrity cast that will be introduced throughout this game were the original 4, but all had their problems working together and ended up in their own films respectively. When doing the Rave and the Redwoods Easter egg, we learn about the story of Kevin and Jay, 2 best friends who got transported into Rave, but Kevin is the only one that's still alive. And when we have to unfortunately break the news that Jay is dead to Kevin, he doesn't take it very lightly. As you can see, the dude literally turns into like a super slasher. Once we defeat him, similarly to Spaceland and pretty much every other map, we get a part of the soul key and once again get teleported to the next film. Our characters then get transported to Shaolin Shuffle, a map that gives me heavy Ninja Turtle vibes for some reason, and is located in New York in the 1970s. It's at this point where we can start to find radios around the map that will allow us to learn more about the backgrounds of our 4 when we previously just kind of knew a basic information about them. For instance, Poindexter was apparently the first found by Willard when he was doing casting, and he spent the majority of his time reading comics and playing video games, which is pretty expected. He also watched every single Willard Wyler film ever, and apparently was a big star in Broadway. So don't ask me why he tried to go here.
Poindexter put himself on a steady diet of comic books, video games, Saturday morning cartoons, and every film I had ever released, all in an effort to escape who he was.
AJ was the second of the 4, and he grew up in LA. Both of his parents were professional athletes with great backgrounds, and if you want to know, his mom was a professional tennis player and his dad was a professional surfer. He himself could have become one, but he pursued a career in acting instead.
His name was Aaron Jordanos, and his brief read like a trip through classic American culture. He had grown up in Los Angeles and was raised by his parents, both of which were athletes in their own right. His mother, a retired tennis professional, and his father, a world-class surfer. He had the genetics of legends coursing through his veins. He could have just as easily been a top-tier professional athlete himself, having won scores of awards throughout his years in high school. But Aaron sought a brighter light than any stadium or court could ever provide. The limelight.
Andre was the 3rd, and we learned that he did not grow up in the best living conditions. He grew up essentially in a hood in the Bronx, and instead of turning to crime, he turned to an acting career to make it out.
His background could have been its own film. Andre Wright grew up in the South Bronx, filled to the brim with its fair share of graffiti, drug dealers, and ladies of the night. He grew up surrounded by turmoil. This kid was the stuff dreams are made of. Raised solely by a single mother, he took a different path than the countless others littered around him, choosing to focus on theater and entertainment rather than earn street credibility.
Sally was the last found, and she has 2 parents that are both well-known actors, and she just wants to escape the shadow of their lives.
The shadow of her parents' fame and the fading memory of the once famous reality TV show haunted her. In nearly every interview, she was asked about them, whether it was about her father's latest fling, or if her mother had actually retired from acting, or if they were ever going to resurrect the old show. Little time was spent discussing her current projects. As the auditions that led nowhere slowly began to pile up, she was beginning to believe the silent chatter. She was still riding her parents' fame and the old show to success.
However, something even more significant is mentioned throughout all of these story tapes. We hear that Willard Wyler is being very cautious in referencing a he, which most likely means there is a higher power that we just simply don't know about yet.
I must be careful. He is always watching.
Anyways, and probably one of the most annoying Easter eggs of all time, with the help of Pam Grier, we defeat the Rat King and obtain yet another part of the Soul Key. The four yet again get teleported, and we are now in Attack of the Radioactive Thing that is on the beach of Sonova in California in around 1959. Our celebrity that is featured in this map is none other than Elvira. She really doesn't help us at all with this Easter egg. She kind of just sits there on her couch, but after going through a whole AP chemistry class to do this Easter egg, eventually we do defeat the Radioactive Thing. However, there is important story bits that can only be heard after the defeat of this creature, meaning it is not really clear if the characters heard these bits of information or not before they teleported away to the next map. But as the player, we do get this information. After we blow up like the crab looking guy, I don't even know what that thing is, we get access to Willard Wyler's diary, which shows a polar opposite to the man that we thought we knew. A man we thought at once wanted us dead and betrayed friends and family shows a more sympathetic side who regrets the death of his wife and hates what he put his daughter through and genuinely wants our characters to succeed.
My little one, how you've grown so and become more than I could ever have fathomed. Winona Lee, there isn't a day that goes by that you don't pass through the halls of my fading memory. When your mother passed away, I promised that I would protect you with all of my heart and soul. I have failed you. My creative desires have corrupted all those that I have held so dear to my heart. Your passing was the final wound in a defeated man that no longer had the will to live. I want nothing more than to undo the treachery released by my convictions. I remain a lost soul amongst all the others with despair, fear, and uncertainty at every turn. I seek the freedom of all that I have encapsulated in this prison that exists neither here nor there.
Our characters collecting the Soul Key and getting teleported get placed in a year far into the future compared to the 1900s that we have been playing in this entire game. Beast from Beyond, which is set on some random planet, jumps far ahead to the year 2206, and we find that cryptids from extinction have returned. Yay! Not really sure why that had to be a feature. I guess it's a cool cameo from Extinction, but they really didn't have to do that. However, after playing this bad map, to be honest, we obtain the final part of the Soul Key and finally get teleported back to the theater that we started in at the beginning of the story. The crew then sees Willard, and judging by the reaction, they most likely did not hear or see the quotes written in Willard's diary and attack, and in result throw Willard into zombies in Spaceland. They start up the film, and who knows what happens to Willard at that point. They then of course try to escape through the doors, but realize they are locked, of course, and suddenly a strange dark figure approaches them. They start talking, and then they just randomly shapeshift into Pam Grier and say that they want the crew to collect souls for them. But even though he wanted us to collect souls, he eventually just transforms into what we know as Mephistopheles and tries to kill the crew. After one of the best boss fights in Call of Duty Zombies history, our characters go through yet another portal and end up back in the theater and try the door again. They find once again that it's locked, and it's not really entirely clear if this was revealed to the crew, but it was revealed to us as the player that the theater and all the maps we had played in previously were all just some pocket dimensions inside of a bigger dimension inside a jar found in another theater. It's super confusing and honestly a pretty crazy plot twist, but something important happens before the cutoff. Willard Wyler suddenly busts through the doors that he was thrown in, supposedly escaping zombies in Spaceland somehow that quickly, and telling the characters that they were chosen for a reason and that there is much to do. He says, "Shall we begin?" And the cutscene, and IW Zombies as we know it, ends. This clearly entails that there was supposed to be a sequel to this game, and I so wish there was, because Lee Ross is actually such an underrated zombies developer. I still so much wish that he was working on a zombies mode right now. And once again, our Call of Duty Zombies developers really love making us mad by leaving us on cliffhangers and never finishing them. BO4. But yeah, that is the entire storyline to Infinite Warfare Zombies. And honestly, I found it super interesting because although I have played Infinite Warfare Zombies and endorsed this mode and really enjoyed it, I haven't actually learned the lore of it. And I think after learning it, it just makes me appreciate the game mode more. Infinite Warfare never had to have zombies in the first place. It never had to have a story. It never had to have all of these great maps, but it did, and I respect it so much for that. Getting to learn a very dark side with Willard Wyler, who threw his daughter into Rave in the Redwoods to be killed, or learning about his more sympathetic side and knowing that he was a good guy all along, but he was under the control of Mephistopheles the whole time. If you guys have never played Infinite Warfare Zombies, I would highly recommend that you get it or play it or something, because it is genuinely one of the best non-Treyarch games ever. I think, in my opinion, it is the best non-Treyarch game ever. And I'm gonna apologize real quick. My internet has been down for 2 days and I have been sick. So it's been a really terrible weekend for me. So I'm still a little bit sick. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I apologize if you can hear my terrible sounding voice right now. But anyways, it's been a pleasure as always, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.